All right, welcome back into the show. I am your host, Jake Masucci. Today, we're going to be discussing March Madness in both aspects because it's been flat out insane both in the men's tournament and the women's tournament. So I wanted to get both content out there and just talk about it a little bit. I want to start with the women's tournament because it's really been awesome to watch throughout the whole year. I mean, there's just so many storylines in women's basketball. And I listen to all these podcasts and I try to get as much sports content in as possible. It felt like throughout the whole year that more people were just interested in the women's tournament and the women's regular season than anybody was in the men's tournament and the men's regular season and all that. And that just has to do with like the fact that in the women's sport, like we don't see the transfer portal as active and the NIL and all that stuff. So, you're seeing the same people. And we had a great storyline last night in Iowa playing LSU in a fantastic battle, which is a championship game rematch. There's all this hype around it. Can Kayla Clark, overcome the woes that happened last year with that LSU team? And boy, oh boy, it was an absolute show. Like this was the first time I really sat down and watched a whole game in a while. I watched a few games throughout the year, just on and off, and like as I'm flipping through channels, like it'll be on, and if it's Caitlin Clark, then I'm watching because she's just unbelievable. So, and I mean, I'm watching this game, and I'm like, wow, like she's unreal with some of the stuff she was pulling out. I mean, I'm just gonna say the stat line, and if you're not impressed, like I don't know what's going through your head because she was unbelievable last night. 41 points, 7 rebounds, 12 assists, 9 for 20 from three, 13 for 29 from the field. And the thing is the difficulty on these shots is just flat out ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, she's shooting from the parking lot. Like it's just unbelievable some of the shots she was taking. And I mean, there's step backs all over the place. There were a few times LSU defenders, it was Van Leith and Angel Reese were out covering, trying to make it a difficult shot, and she would still hit it. And then they're going down the floor like, I don't know what to do, you know? And that's just unbelievable. Like you only see that kind of shot making in the NBA, which is just a flat out unbelievable type thing because like I don't think I've seen like shooters do that other than Damian Lillard and Steph Curry because it's off the dribble, off screens, difficult threes. And that's just the incredible part of watching her play and why the the women's tournament has been so popular. I mean, the numbers literally just came out before I did this podcast. There was about 12 million viewers for those Elite Eight games last night, and like they were both awesome. I mean, I'll get to UConn and USC in a second and how unbelievable some of those players are. LSU has a elite squad here. Like, yes, they kind of fell to the 3 seed and struggled with a tough SEC throughout the whole year, but they were still really good. And Angel Reese put on a show with 17 points and 20 rebounds. She didn't really shoot the ball well, 7 of 21, but you can just tell like the height was there for LSU. And that actually could be a problem for Iowa. Shout out to Reagan Smith for saying that when we were watching them in Florida, that Iowa could have a problem with height. So if they see someone like a South Carolina is always unbelievable to watch. I love telling the story about South Carolina. I'll get back to Iowa in a second, but I love their coach, Dawn Staley. Like, I will watch South Carolina play because I think she does one of the most fantastic jobs of preparing her team. And she's just so smart. And the thing that's so impressive about her, and I listened to one podcast and they told the story here, but she actually got the South Carolina job while she was still in the WNBA. So there was a point in time where she would spend her summer playing in the WNBA, and then right after the season was over, she was coaching at South Carolina. That's just an unbelievable thing to do. Like the amount of time management and the skill to have there and the basketball IQ to have there. just flat out unbelievable. And she always has great teams. South Carolina, again, are just unreal. They're undefeated this year and really ran that SEC, which was part of the reason why it was so tough for LSU to even get back to this point. They sat at a 3 seed in a tough league, and they were able to beat the 2 seed. The 2 seeds escaping my head for a second. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. The 2 seed was UCLA. They were able to escape there with a 78 to 69 victory there. But I mean, like looking at this in this game, the story was Iowa. It was Caitlin Clark. That was the story. The unbelievable shots that she was hitting just made it so difficult for any LSU player to have any confidence, because you could go down, hit a layup, and then Caitlin's pushing it like right away. And some of the passes she's making in transition are just so impressive because it's such high IQ plays, and they're always right on the money. Like, the fact of the matter is Caitlin Clark, as I'm looking at it, she had 12 assists last night. It felt like she could have had 17 assists because there are always opportunities for people to score. It was just LSU was big and were able to get blocks. I mean, some of the blocks they were able to pull off in the game was flat out incredible. I'm looking at their block numbers. They had 6 blocks as a team. Angel Reese had 3 of them, and their other big, Johnson, had 3 of them also. So, like, looking at that, like, it's pretty clear that Iowa has a little bit of a weakness in the big aspect, but Iowa's just incredible because they got easily the best player in women's college basketball. And just the amount of revenue she's created for the sport of women's college basketball is just unbelievable, flat out unbelievable. And it really was a really fun game to watch. I mean, she's just unbelievable. But the thing is it's not just Caitlin that makes the women's game so great. Like, they have so many stars in this league now. And I mean, it's clear, and they're all really, really fun to watch. Like, getting to the second game of UConn and USC. UConn's been down a little bit from last year because Paige Beckers was out with, I believe it was an ACL. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But I mean, like, the comeback that Paige Beckers has had is just incredible. And she's back this year and had an unbelievable night last night with a 28-point performance. She had 10 rebounds and 6 assists. She was always just great to watch. It was really clear her freshman and sophomore year that she was just unbelievable. And then the fact that she had to sit out that other year, I mean, the fact of the matter is like, and this is what Golke and I talked about with like hard work in the last podcast. It's like, if you go through a setback like that, you're only going to get 10 times better. And you can see it with Paige Becker. She is 10 times better. She's 10 times more focused. She is ready to go. I mean, and this was an unbelievable win for UConn. I wasn't able to watch this whole game, but they were able to win 80-73 in this game. And I mean, Paige is just an inspirational story. And their coach, I call him Coach Gino because I don't really know how to pronounce his last name, to be honest. But I mean, he's been there so long. I believe it was 39 years, and they just win. They're a program. I mean, and I remember watching the NCAA tournament championships. Like, there was one year that Brittany Griner would win, and then it felt like every other year UConn would win. Like, they're just a force in women's basketball, and they're back in a big way because I think Paige Beckers is clearly the second best guard in the country right now in women's college basketball. Like, with Caitlin Clark, like, it's close, but Clark's just, the shot making is unreal, the speed there, and Paige she jumps off to the same way, like, just flat out unbelievable. And I want to talk about Watkins for a second. She really struggled last night with the 9 for 25 from the field, still 29 points. But the stories I hear about her are just unbelievable. The work ethic there is just flat out incredible. She's a true freshman, and walked into this USC team, only got better and better, and put them in a great position throughout the whole year. I mean, she averaged 27.1 points per game in college basketball. That's ridiculous, flat out ridiculous. She had 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and I mean, they really gave her the keys. And the fact of the matter is like, she would have bad games, and then she would go into the gym and work hard and like get better and make the adjustments needed and be like, okay, now I got to do this next game. And she's able to do that, I mean, again, I talked about all the content that I listened to. I listened to Bill Simmons talk about Watkins and like him. He's absolutely falling in love with watching these stars play because like you get to see them over and over again. And the Watkins grew up in the LA area, so he was able to watch her in high school. And like seeing her like be able to develop and like change up based on how people are guarding him, it's so difficult for like a freshman to be able to do. She's younger than me. She's 19. And and she's able to do this at the highest level against some of the best teams. I mean, she's just unbelievable. And her coming back is going to be flat out ridiculous. I'm very excited to see USC next year because I feel like they were a 1 seed this year, sat at 29-6 throughout the year and dominated the Pac-12. I mean, they're going to be flat out scary again. Like them and Stanford are both very good schools in the Pac-12, and I mean USC is going to be back and dangerous, and Watkins is just flat out scary. And looking at the other teams a little bit, I watched a little bit on Sunday, not as much. NC State, what a story in both men's and women's basketball. I'm a little more upset about the men's story, but I'll get to that in the men's segment that I have coming up after this. They had a great win against Texas. I didn't watch too much of Texas throughout the year. South Carolina was the other team I watched, and I talked about Dawn Staley a little bit with that around the Caitlin Clark section, but like talking about this team, like they're so deep. They're so deep. And I love what Staley does is when she has her practices, they actually have a team called the Highlighters. And that's just guys from college that like played high school ball, high level high school ball, probably maybe could play like D2 basketball, D3 basketball, didn't really want to, but they practice with them and they scrimmage hard against them and they'll go back and forth, back and forth. And I really think that can get these teams to the next level. It's just the truth, because if you find people that you can compete with and like they're close games and they're all over the place, then you can practice almost any scenario possible. And I think Staley knows that, and I think the team knows that, and they're just flourishing. I mean, the fact that you could be 36-0 going into the Final Four is just ridiculous. It's flat out ridiculous. And South Carolina has done this for the past few years. They're just a powerhouse in women's college basketball, and I mean they're fun to watch. And I mean they're favored by 11.5 in the Final Four. That just speaks for itself. And it's just really cool to have women's college basketball be in the forefront of people's minds, because it's a really cool tournament. And I enjoy watching it every year, almost no matter what, since the Brittany Griner years. So, I'm really excited for the Final Four, and I think a lot of people are going to tune in. I mean, 12 million viewers. It's great to be a women's college basketball fan right now because there's so many stars, and I really think that it's great basketball to watch because these players are really, really good, and it's nice that they're getting the respect that they deserve. So I'm excited for that Final Four. It's going to be great.
Hello, hello. This is Giovanni Mosheri. You might have heard me a couple times on Jake's Takes. I am the sports media director of Oakland University's campus radio station, WXOU, and I've been the host for about 2 years of a weekly sports show called The JOMO Show, where we cover all of Oakland University athletics, including a weekly update on scores and highlights, as well as interviews with athletes or those otherwise involved in athletics. You can listen to The JOMO Show live on WXOU Thursdays at 6, or you can tune in to me afterwards on Spotify. It's The JOMO Show.
All right, let's switch back over into men's college basketball. Okay, so kind of left off. We talked a lot about the tournament with Golke. Just kind of Oakland's perspective. So I haven't really talked about the tournament crazy in depthly, and that's more just because I was in the tournament and really didn't want to talk about other teams as much and blah blah blah, all that jazz. I can talk about it now. So let's talk about it. The Final Four consists of UConn versus Alabama, and that's actually the second game at 8:49, and then the first game is Purdue and NC State. So I'm going to just talk about the Elite Eight teams, kind of the Elite Eight games, how many I watched, and talk about those teams more specifically, just because I don't really want to dive crazy deep in depth by myself with the NCAA tournament. I don't think it would give you guys the best content. So I'll talk about it, but you know, like I'll dive into these teams. I'm not gonna go back and talk about my Charleston pick not being right and all that stuff. I mean, those takes are in the past. So let's talk about these games. So the first game, UConn Illinois. This game was crazy, flat out crazy. I think a lot of people expected this to be way closer than it was. It was a very good game back and forth in the first half, and it was tied at 23 at halftime. And you're like, man, what's going on with UConn? They weren't scoring very well, and actually they were up 5 at halftime, but it was 23-23 at a point. And you're like, okay, Illinois is hanging with UConn. They're playing pretty good defense. This is going to end up being a close game. And then UConn starts the second half on a heater, an unbelievable heater. They go on a 30-0 run and take over the game, absolutely dominating. And it was just a coming out party that UConn is the best team and it's everybody else's job to catch up because they're just unbelievable. And Asher and I talked about how they are clearly the favorites, but they showed the world that they are. And some of these guys just unbelievable. Donovan Clingan really showed up. A lot of people really noticed him. 22-10, just an unbelievable performance there. Karaban was pretty solid, added 10 points. And then Tristan Newton, man, gosh, some of the passes, holy cow. It was just flat out beautiful to watch him play. I love him. He's my favorite player on that UConn team because he can just create so many plays for them. And he's just a flat out unbelievable player. And then Cam Spencer, dude. Cam Spencer's incredible. 11, 12, and 5 in this game. And he was all over the place. Flat out all over the place. Great shooter. He's so fundamentally sound. And the thing is with UConn that I love, and Dan Hurley does a great job installing this, there's so much movement in their offense. It's so beautiful to watch. And those are the teams that I really fall in love with. And UConn's playing out of their minds. With Illinois, it was just UConn putting on a show defensively. It wasn't like they were getting bad shots off. They just couldn't put the ball in the bucket because of how unbelievable the defense was. Terrence Shannon with his worst game of the tournament, 8 points, 2 for 12 shooting. He averaged 28 in the tournament, so I'm not putting too much of saying he choked or anything like that. No, I mean, he's the reason they're there. He was flat out insane throughout the whole year. I mean, I remember us playing them and we lost by 10 points early in the regular season, but everybody just talked about how good he is, and how athletic he is. Terrence Shannon is an unbelievable player and deserves just credit because he's flat out awesome. Dumas is also awesome. He actually helped them a lot in the scoring aspect with 17 points. But the UConn defense was just flat out on throughout the whole game. And they just locked them up in that second half, really took care of business. UConn is the clear favorite heading into the Final Four. They're just flat out unbelievable. And it's cool because UConn and NC State, I didn't talk about NC State women's as much, but UConn and NC State are both in the Final Four in men's and women's. So congratulations to both those schools. I mean, very well done and very tough to do. So that's really cool there. All right. The second game was Alabama-Clemson. I actually didn't watch too much of this. Me and my cousin were going through a running week, and we had a 13-mile run the next day. So I wanted to have my legs be really prepared for that run, and I went to bed early. So, this game was good. I really dove into the box score and watched a lot of highlights to make sure I was ready to talk about this. And Alabama, man, that was one of my bad takes, I guess. It just was. And this region was definitely really weird. There was a lot of upsets going on throughout the whole thing. Clemson kind of came out of nowhere. I really regretted not picking Clemson. That Clemson-New Mexico game was so tough for me because I really liked where the Mountain West was throughout the whole year. And I also liked Clemson because Joe Girard's awesome. I mean, he didn't have the greatest tournament, but they have so many guys. Like PJ Hall is a fantastic big and really showed up. And then Shefferfield, I think. I don't know. I don't say his name right, but he's also an unbelievable big for them. And Girard had a solid game in this Alabama game, was hitting his threes, had 19 points. Girard's one of the most decorated high school players of all time. If you don't know what he did in New York basketball, just look him up. He's just an unbelievable high school basketball player. And yeah, Clemson really made a run at it, but Alabama was just clearly the better team. Marcus Sears has been playing out of his mind in this tournament. He's going to be the guy to watch as they play UConn. Stevenson was hitting every shot he took, it felt like. I watched a little of the second half, I think, and gosh, like he was hitting everything. 5 for 8 from 3 off the bench. And I mean, if Alabama's hitting their shots, they're tough, man. Like if you can't get good defense on them. It's tough. It's really tough. And that's why, like, I mean, looking back, I had picked Charleston over them because Charleston was my upset pick and I kind of wanted to stay consistent. But looking back at that game, it's like both those teams are just fantastic offensive teams. And Alabama's got the more talent. So, I mean, it probably would have been smart to pick Alabama there. But, I mean, looking at the SEC, like Alabama just – it was Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Those are the 3 main teams in the SEC. And Alabama lost early in the SEC tournament. They lost to Florida. They were hungry, flat out hungry. And that Charleston, Alabama game was everything I said it would be. They won 109-96 there. And then they played a very hot Grand Canyon team, able to win that. And then they snuck out against North Carolina. I was telling you throughout the whole thing, I wasn't sure where North Carolina would lose, but I did think they would lose early. And that North Carolina-Alabama game, you can't blame R.J. Davis. I think Alabama did an unbelievable job defending him. The thing is, it's tough, it's tough when you run into a hot team like Alabama. And against North Carolina, they were hot. They hit 11 threes. It's tough to beat a team like that when they hit 11 threes on you. And yes, North Carolina had 12 threes. But if you're playing in an offensive game, back and forth, I think everybody's going to take Alabama in a second. And that's why Drew was so high on a team like Kentucky. Because, like, if you're playing them in an offensive game, then you're going to go back and forth. You're going to pick Kentucky in almost every scenario because they're the better offensive team. So you want to slow that down, and that's what we were able to do when we played Kentucky. We slowed them down. We made them turn the ball over. We exploited what we already knew were their weaknesses. With Alabama, nobody's exploited what their weaknesses already are. But they're going to run into a team like UConn, who's just flat out unbelievable at exploiting weaknesses. So I'm really concerned with how they're going to look in that game, and I could see UConn really going after them hard and being able to win that game. I really don't. I think that game might be a blowout, and yeah, I mean, I think UConn's just clearly the better team and will be able to go. But I've underrated Alabama throughout this whole thing. I really did not think this was a Final Four team, and this is a great year for Nate Oates. So congratulations to Nate Oates and that whole staff. They're an unbelievable team, but they're running into a juggernaut in UConn. So that's going to be an exciting game. I think UConn will win, but I'm looking forward to that one. All right, let's switch over to the Sunday games, Purdue and Tennessee. This game was just flat out unbelievable. I talked to Drew, who was actually at the game, and he is so pumped that Purdue is in the Final Four. And congratulations to all those Purdue fans. Zach Edey is unbelievable. Unbelievable. This game was so much fun to watch. Edey had 40 points, 16 rebounds, and just throughout the whole tournament, he's been incredible. Flat out incredible. And I did not think Purdue was going to be able to do this. I thought they had a really tough road. I was completely wrong about Utah State. They absolutely dominated Utah State, and they've looked dominant throughout the whole tournament. I'm going to go through their games real quick. Against Grambling, they started out slow, not sure. And then I was like, oh, Utah State dominated, It could be a very, very interesting game. And then going into Utah State, flat-out domination, 106-67. It looked like they woke up completely. And then Gonzaga, it was back and forth throughout the whole game. Gonzaga's a little scary, but Nembhard's good. I kind of expected Gonzaga to be in that spot, in that Sweet 16 spot. And Mark Few always gets the guys going. But Purdue was able to wake up, and Edey is just so tough to guard. And, dude, Edey's just incredible. In this game, he had 27 and 14. And Braden Smith, man, holy cow. Especially in this Gonzaga game, oh my gosh. He had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 15 assists. The passes that Braden Smith can throw are just incredible. Flat out incredible. I can't say enough about Braden Smith and the development that he's had. Because we talked about it a lot on the podcast. What I was nervous about with this Purdue team was how young their guards were. It was Fletcher Loyer and Braden Smith. We talked about that all the time last year, me and Asher. completely. And we were on the same page about it. This year, we talked about it again. They're older, they're more experienced, they're ready for the moment. And they've shown up. They flat out shown up. And they had an incredible win against Tennessee. And this was on Sunday. Yep, Sunday. And the Purdue ended up winning 72-66. Tennessee was my finals pick. I do not regret it at all. Last year, I kind of regretted the Houston pick, not too much, but this Tennessee team was really, really good. Dalton Knecht with 37 points was just flat out awesome. Okay, he was just all over the place, and he was the only reason that Tennessee was in this game. He was just incredible throughout it all. Ziegler kind of struggled to get a shot going, was passing really well and creating turnovers, which was helping Tennessee stay in the game. And their other guys just really didn't show up. It was Dalton Knecht trying to carry them past a giant. And Zach Edey was just incredible. 40 points, was getting to the free throw line, was just all over the place. Fletcher Loyer helped out with 14 points. He didn't shoot the ball all that great, but he was pretty good. And then Braden Smith had his near triple-double numbers. He was great in this one. Turned the ball over a little bit, but, nothing to complain about here. Purdue looked really, really good. And I'm very excited to see them in the Final Four. I think they're clear favorites against NC State, which I'll get to them in a second, and I'll get to that matchup. But congratulations to Purdue. Really well deserved. They were in a tough region, and they were able to pass every test. So if you're a Purdue fan, you should be very excited about them being in the Final Four and a possibility of a championship there. All right, NC State Duke. And this is the South region. This is Oakland's region. This is the team Oakland lost to. And I got to admit, I'm probably the only one in the podcast world that is a little upset that NC State is in the Final Four. And I have every right to be. It's just a little bit frustrating to see the team that beat you make it to that spot. And I've talked about it with a lot of people, just trying to get my anger out. And, some people have told me, oh, you should be happy. You lost to the team that made the Final Four. Like, it shows that your loss. We were one possession away, man. We were one possession away. Like, we had them in our grasp, and we couldn't win that game. NC State beat us in overtime. And then they went into the Sweet 16, played Marquette. Marquette shoots 3 of 32 from 3. And NC State wins that game. Congrats to NC State. They had a great game plan. They were all over the place there. And, they're a fantastic team. They showed it against Duke. They were perfectly ready for that game. They played Duke twice throughout the regular season. Once in the regular season, lost at home. And then they played them in the ACC tournament and were able to beat them. This team's awesome. Like, they got some really, really good players. Diarra, their other big, is really solid. He's actually from Garden City. A lot of Oakland players actually played with him in Garden City. And then they got DJ Burns, of course. He's the man that everybody knows. He's so good, man. So good. And Duke's game plan in this game was to not double him and make him beat you with his scoring. And he just dominated Duke's bigs. 29, 4 and 3, 13 for 19 shooting. He is just unbelievable, man. The touch that this guy has is just incredible. He's a flat out baller and played great in this one. And then O'Connell comes in, pretty solid shooter. He can do it all. He's a pretty solid defender on ball as well. In this game, he had 6 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. It was all over the place, really doing a lot for them. He's a great glue guy for them. DJ Horn's awesome. So he's their best shooter by far on the team, and he's probably their best pure scorer other than Burns, like guard scorer. And that's going to be important if they're going to compete with a team like Purdue. Purdue will probably put one of their better perimeter defenders on him. But, then again, you saw a guy like Knecht absolutely go off. So I think Horn would have to have a big game for NC State to move on over Purdue. So Horn would definitely be the guy to watch if you're looking at a guy that's not really like the center attention in this game, but could have a strong impact on the game. Morcell's pretty solid, their other starter. He had a solid game in this one, 8 points. Looking at Duke here, McCain was awesome with 32, and he was really keeping them in the game, really hitting some crazy shots. And I think he got a lot of NBA notice there, so I could see him definitely being drafted, maybe lottery, maybe a little later. I mean, this draft is really not that good, which is why, like, normally I would have done maybe like a pre-draft kind of thing. There might be a little less NBA draft content this year. I'll just put it at that because the draft's not great and it's not as fun to get into unless we're talking Jack Golke. Then I could talk about it all day. But talking about some other people, Flipikowski, man, really struggled. Really struggled. He had 11 points, 9 rebounds, and wasn't great in this one. Jeremy Roach was solid, nothing special there. And then Tyrese Proctor, man. Tyrese Proctor kind of fell off a cliff. Like, he did not have a great year throughout the whole year. I think a lot of people expected him to have a much better year. I still like his game a lot. I think he's got some potential, but he's definitely got to figure it out. I hope he comes back to school because I think maybe with a different crew and a different type of teammates, he might be a little better. But definitely a little nervous about Proctor. And this was crazy. This was flat out crazy. I mean, I was not happy about NC State making it all the way here. And that's just because I'm an Oakland fan and I thought we had them. I thought we should have had them. And I mean, I feel like Oakland was the better team. Yeah, that's kind of my take there. Congratulations to NC State. Congratulations to your boys team, your girls team. An unbelievable year for you guys. The boys team, literally in the second round of the ACC tournament, we're down 3 points to Virginia, and they hit that crazy three to tie the game, go into overtime. They win that game, and then they haven't lost. They haven't lost since. Like, it's just been an unbelievable run, and this will be remembered for a long time. So the fact that they're here, unbelievable. Big congratulations to NC State. My predictions, Final Four. Okay. I think UConn absolutely destroys Alabama. I'm still off the Alabama train. I gave them a lot of credit. Okay. I did. They're a lot better than I thought, but UConn's unbelievable. So I think UConn absolutely destroys Alabama. And then I think Purdue and NC State is close. I think Purdue struggles at the beginning. I feel like they're going to put too much attention to too much attention to Burns, double team him a lot. And then Horn's going to get going, which will keep NC State in it. And then in the second half, they're going to make an adjustment. And I think Edey's just going to have a monster game and be a little too much. So I think Purdue wins by I'm going to go 6 or 8 points. They beat NC State. So then the final, I have Purdue and UConn, and I am going to go with UConn. It's a boring pick, but I mean, if I'm looking at it as a team perspective, Asher and I talked about it. There were 2 teams that were in the top 15. I think it was top 20 maybe in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. It was UConn and Arizona. And we were both shocked that Arizona lost. We just were Clemson where it was able to beat them and just looked flat out awesome doing it. But I mean, UConn's just unbelievable at the offensive and defensive end. They flat out showed it in that Elite Eight game. I think Dan Hurley has got these guys playing just at an unbelievable level, and I don't see them slowing down. I think UConn is clearly the best team in this. I think it'll be a close game because it's so tough to figure out how to stop Edey. I think that championship game could just be an unbelievable back and forth game that people talk about for ages. But I think UConn is going to win it and go back to back